Hi, it's Tony, your Pop Pops Workshop. We are, in about a week, we're doing an epoxy river style charcuterie board. So you're used to epoxy river tables. We're scaling this down. We're going to teach a class at the local Woodcraft on making one of these boards. It's a 2-week class, basically over 2 weeks. So one night, next Wednesday night, will be the beginning where we teach you how to get it all set up and poured. And then the following Wednesday, we'll take it out of the mold, we'll finish it up, trim it to size, do all the fun stuff. So when you're done, you're going to walk out with a board. So follow along as I make this sample board and show you some of the basics of a quick and easy river style, epoxy river style charcuterie board. All right, so we've got our pieces cut, filled there. We're going to have a nice little river here. We've got a couple holes to fill. I don't want to do the math to measure this nonsense. So we're going to use the old rice trick. We're going to take this rice, we're going to pour it in to fill the voids to the height I want, fill the holes, and then I'm going to pull the boards out, pour the rice into a container, and then that will tell me the volume that the rice filled. Now, will epoxy creep a little bit? Sure. So I might add like 10% to whatever the volume is here to give myself plenty of epoxy for this pour. But that is a quick and easy way if you want to avoid math on doing this pour. So we'll get to pouring some rice. I think it's jasmine. There, that looks about right. We'll pull some boards, and then we're going to find out how much is in there. By the way, don't cook this later because there's probably some walnut dust in there. I'd avoid put it in a bag, use it for all your epoxy needs. All right. Might need more than 1 cup. So that's about 350 milliliters. And that's just under 250 milliliters. So about 600 milliliters of epoxy. Add about another 50 or 60 to that. Should be ready to pour. Okay, so we've got the rice trick done. Now we're on to the next tip that you may want to remember. Some epoxies are mixed by weight, some by volume. A lot of the deep pour stuff is by volume, but there are a couple that you can pour thicker that are by weight. So got the scale out. If you need that, measure out your first half if it's a 1-to-1. So like we're going to do 700 milliliters. I would mix 350 milliliters in here. I would then mix the exact same weight of the other component, which could be 350 milliliters, it could be less. If it's less and I need to make up that volume, now I have to go back and weigh and add a little bit more and add a little bit more. So there's a little more fussing to get the volume when you're doing it by weight. So that's a little tip there. Pay attention to what your epoxy needs, whether it's measured by weight or by volume, and act accordingly. All right, so the next step is we need to secure our boards down in so the epoxy doesn't make them float up. But once we start mixing our epoxy, the clock is running on the work time. So I'm going to get everything clamped in place first, then we'll move on to that. So I've just cut some blocks. I've got some 2x4s, some clamps. We're just going to clamp it down so that when I pour it in here, she doesn't want to float up. So pretty simple. Get things going, and we will that there. Doesn't take much pressure, just a little. All right. Now I have access to everywhere I need to pour, and everything's clamped down. This won't go anywhere. She's sealed down to the bottom. All right. Next step, we're going to mix. So we'll just start pouring. We've got our color picked out. All right. So no clock running yet, which is good because I forgot to grab a stick to stir it with. So I'll do that, and I'll be right back. Got my stick. Now we've got these Starbond mica powders they sent us. Thank you, Starbond. And we've chosen emerald as our color. But before we can color, we have to mix these together. One thing you'll note, I don't know if it'll pick up on the camera, but as we pour the part B in here, you'll see they aren't the same viscosity. So they want to kind of be separate. They want to kind of do their own thing. That's why we have to stir. The other part of this is as we stir, we have to be cautious not to introduce a lot of air. This isn't a big pour where we could use a power stir or power stir stick. So you can see the color, and once I've stirred this to where it's all the same color, not color, I guess clarity would be a better word. When we get all the same clarity without stirring too fast, one thing I tell my students in our intro class is don't stir too fast. And they'll look at this and go, hey, that was too fast. Maybe it was. I don't think it is. It's a larger volume, so we're okay. But yeah, so we're going to stir this up, and the next step will be color. We are on the clock. So now I'm going to get my color in there, and it has been requested that it be pretty dark. So that ought to achieve pretty dark. We'll see. It's a larger volume. We'll see how we do with that. Might have to add more, but adding more is fine. We cannot take it out. So that's the thing to remember when you're doing colors. Adding color is great, but once you reach your full saturation, you cannot take it out. Well, Nana, should we put more color in there?
I'll wait and reserve judgment until it's all mixed in.
Okay.
It makes a big difference when you hit one of the little pockets that's still a little dry.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh, for sure you were going to have to add in a bunch, but
Let's get mixed in good.
Yeah. I think
Pretty.
that looks pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty. It'll go nice with the walnut. All right. Not too bad. Okay, I think we're ready to pour.
There's a little pocket right there. A couple of them. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Yep, demold time. Let's see what happens. Ooh, those are in there pretty good. Hot dog. Okay, the final water pop on this board is almost done. So we'll sand the front and back to 180, clean that up, and we'll throw a little walrus oil on there. And actually, first we'll do a round over on these edges. So we'll leave the bottom, it's a sample board for class. So we're going to talk about the options when we're done here for what you could do from here. All right, got our round over on there with a little sanding to ease those edges. We've done our final water pop, so we'll do our final sanding on both sides. Clean her up. She'll be ready for finish. All right, so the board is done. You might notice, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the closing, there's some bubbles going on here on the bottom. We fixed that on the top. When we're all done with the board, I'll explain what I did. But we're getting ready now to use some walrus oil, the cutting board oil. So we're going to put that on as our first application. When that's all dry in, we'll hit it with a little wood wax to give her a nice coat of protection. So that's what our finish is going to be. Thanks to the fine folks at Walrus Oil for sending us out those samples. So we're going to get that done. But there's the top. It's looking good. Nice round over. Feels comfortable to the hand. So time to put on a little oil. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. All right, now we got that open. Let's see if that's enough. We'll spread it around. Ooh, feels smooth. Love that. Love that feel. Now you can wear gloves if you don't like the feel of the oils on your skin, but I love the color that we get on the boards from this. Should we get in the ends real good? Now we'll flip her over. A little more oil. And now we wait while she soaks up what she's going to soak up. Okay, cutting board oil is wiped off. What wouldn't soak in, we've wiped down, cleaned it up. Now we're ready for some cutting board wax. So we've just put it on a little white pad, which I prefer to do hard wax oils and waxes with this white pad. It's slightly aggressive, not very much, but just enough to really help work this into the pores so you'll get a good bond with it. So I'll get this on here, and then we'll wipe down whatever's in excess and come back and take a look at it. Boy, I wish you could feel what I feel. That is really nice. Just a coat of the cutting board oil from Walrus Oil and their wood wax. Put it on with the white pad, buffed it in with a cloth, and get a nice shine and a great feel and protection. So you got some protection there for your serving board, and it's food safe. So that's the important thing, food contact safe. So let's take for a minute and talk about, I did not have the right epoxy on hand when I went to pour this. So I poured it anyway, you know, take a risk, no reward, right? Well, I ended up with some air bubbles along the edges, in part possibly the quick cure on the epoxy that I was using, but also I did not have any shellac on hand to seal the edges of the boards. That's important. If you don't want air being pulled out of the boards as the epoxy heats up, you need to seal that edge. Shellac, you could use a CA glue, setting a penetrating epoxy, whatever. Seal the edges of your boards. I didn't. I paid the price. So the fix, as you can fix anything if you try hard enough, was to take a Dremel tool, and I just dremeled out the perimeter here, and then a little Starbond 5-minute epoxy, colored it, Didn't get the color just right, but that to me adds a nice, interesting contrast. You get that transition from the board to this. I kind of liked it, but you could use a different color as well. We talked about that. So lots of things you can do, but you can fix your mistakes. That's the important thing. So now the mistake is a feature. So it's not a mistake, it's a feature if you do your homework. That's important. So board turned out well. I'm really pleased with it. I'm going to do another one, and this time I will make sure I have on hand the things I need to have on hand, but I was trying to get this done for our class, which is Wednesday. This is Monday. It's this Wednesday is our first charcuterie board class. So looking forward to that. We've got some students that are going to be making some boards. So we've got all the stuff there that I need, so I won't make the same mistakes and help the students get boards that turn out really nice. So hopefully you enjoyed the little journey we had putting this together. Thanks for watching. We appreciate that. And remember, you can do this. All right, all done. And I wish you were here to feel this. This is amazing. So the walrus oil, their cutting board oil, and their wood wax, great stuff. We gave her a drink, soaked her in there, got her hydrated, and then protected it with the wood wax, buffed that in with a white pad, and then went ahead and buffed that off with just a cloth. Turned out great. Now, it said earlier we had issues with air bubbles here. This is entirely my fault. I didn't have the proper epoxy on hand, but I thought, well, we'll just give it a whirl. So I used a quick casting epoxy, which tends to cure pretty quick. And in the heat up phase, this wood can leach out air bubbles as it's being heated up. So that looks to be what really happened there. So I didn't have the right epoxy on hand. I also didn't seal the edges of my board with shellac or something like that, penetrating epoxy, whatever, to make sure that that stayed out. It didn't let the air bubbles into the mixture. So what was the fix? I got a Dremel tool, and I used that to clean out the edges where the air bubbles were here. I left them on the air side so I can show my students coming up this Wednesday what happens and how you can kind of fix that. And then we got some Starbond 5-minute epoxy, put color in it. Obviously I didn't get an exact match, but kind of a happy accident. We got a nice little transition. So remember, it's never a mistake, it's a feature. So just turn your mistakes into features. Nobody has to know. Well, you all know, but I'm sure you're not going to tell anybody. I hope. So it's a feature. I promise you it's a feature. So we got that done. Now from here, there's a lot of things you can do. You can cut in openings for handles. You can put on some handles. You can go to your local box stores. A lot of times there's handles on clearance, and you can find some pretty cool and unique handles at your local box stores on clearance. That's where I get a lot of mine if I'm looking for them. So try there for that. Or you can put feet on the bottom. So something like this, you just wanted to leave it without anything on top. You can put some feet on the bottom, some rubber feet, or some of these decorative box feet. For these, you drill a hole, use a little setting epoxy those in, they'd be good. These you just screw in. So lots of things you can do at this stage. This is as far as I'm going to take this because, again, it's a teaching tool for the class that's coming up. And yeah, so that's where we're at with that. Lots of ways you can go now with this serving board, charcuterie board. And it's up to you. Sky's the limit, really. So hopefully you enjoyed following along, and you won't tell anybody about my mistake. Swearing you to silence. But hopefully you're making features and not mistakes in your shop. And remember, you can do this.